welcome back those of you that have been here before. Welcome newcomers that haven't been here before. Of course, welcome back everybody that's tuning in on the Facebook Live. This is week 3 of our 6-week ultimate lifestyle transformation cleanse, utilizing superfoods that are clean, high vibes, and allowing the body to be able to detoxify, cleanse, and purify. So this week we're going to continue on having a conversation about gut health. We talked about gut health last week. Kind of important as everything we're talking about here when it comes to cleansing and detoxifying is what is happening within what is the gut, from the mouth all the way down to when it comes out the other end there. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more and the importance of gut health. The 4 main processes of gut health, if you can control that please. Thank you. So the 4 basic principles when it comes to gut health and when it comes to an overall, starting from the mouth down, is we're going into digestion. Of course, we all think we have a pretty good idea of what digestion is, but digestion, absorption, utilization, and then elimination, getting it out the other end, right? So here's the hiccup though. That seems so very simple. We're like, okay, well gut health, that seems pretty basic because those are 4 basic principles. Well, let me tell you, a lot of people get bumped and stopped at digestion. Then if they don't get bumped and stopped at digestion, then they're having problems with the absorption. And so we need, or maybe they might be absorbing a little bit, but a lot of times they're not. They're absorbing, but they're having problems with actually being able to utilize the minerals and the nutrients that their body is absorbing, right? And then elimination. How many people are like, okay, I've got the digestion, I'm absorbing, I'm utilizing. When it comes to actually eliminating it out the other end or coming out whatever end it might end up being, there's problems there too. So every step of the way within those 4 basic processes, there are hiccups that happen every step of the way that are not only affecting when it comes to the gut, but they're affecting other places throughout the body as well, the cells and the overall body health and functioning. So really important for us to be able to kind of break that down. So we can go ahead and move forward a little bit more on that. So digestion, it's the first process that has to take place in any healthy body. Any food that we consume must go through the digestive process. Makes sense. Any food that comes in, it needs to go through and get utilized. Have you ever eaten a food where you're like, no, I don't plan on digesting this? I hope not. I hope you're not just eating things for the sake of eating things. Hopefully everything that's going into your mouth is because you think it's going to have some sort of benefit to your body or your well-being, right? So any food that we eat must go through the digestive process, and we have to break things down into building materials or repair materials. So like the digestive process, like I said, it's going to start at the mouth. Breakdown happens with enzyme action. So enzymes are things that break things down, speed things up. In this case, we have enzymes that are getting released right as soon as we put things inside of our mouth already, like carbohydrates and stuff are starting to be utilized and broken down. As soon as the saliva comes out, whenever you first start with the mouth, as it goes down, going down into the stomach, we have different kinds of enzymes that happen in the stomach. Those are acidic enzymes. Like we said last week, where's the only place that's supposed to be acidic?
Stomach.
Stomach. Stomach is the only place that's supposed to be acidic in the body. Everywhere else is supposed to be alkaline. So when I'm talking about acidity or alkalinity, this is like basic chemistry. I'm just going to leave it there. Alkaline meaning that this is where, like if we're looking at the pH scale, and we're looking at chemistry, the pH scale, the lower the number is, the more acidic, the higher the number, the more alkaline it is, okay? Now there is such thing as too much, too high of alkalinity, but we're not going to go in there. But for understanding purposes right now, we want to stay away from the acidity and stay more in the alkalinity, because a lot of the problems when it comes to any part of those 4 basic processes that I just introduced you to, from the digestion of foods, the absorption of foods, to the utilization of foods, to the elimination of things, has problems that has a lot to do with the fact that our bodies are too acidic. And so what we really want to help you recognize is what are the things that are making your body acidic as well along the way. So going down to the stomach, the only place that's supposed to be acidic, because that is where it's going to break down proteins. Proteins actually don't start getting broken down in the mouth. That's what happens in the stomach. And so there's particular enzymes that are being released that you can break down the proteins in your body. Now, I think it's next week, we'll be talking more about proteins that are, we think it just comes from animal meat, but nope, that is certainly not the case. So we're going to be talking a lot about proteins, especially everyone has been brainwashed, especially in the workout world and the world of bodybuilding, thinking what we need to do in order to build these big muscles and have healthy, strong bodies. We've got to have enough protein. The little that people realize is that they're actually consuming the wrong types of protein, and too much of the wrong types of protein is going to back you up in more ways than one, okay? Not only that, get in the way of you actually expressing health, having good digestion, good absorption, good utilization, good elimination, and then therefore it's also causing other effects throughout the body, creating stress and havoc and growth of bad bacteria and parasites inside the body, okay? Let alone the symptoms like gas, belching, like feeling all thick inside your stomach and everything. We'll go into some of the symptoms of things that usually happen, letting you know that your body's too acidic. So stomach releases that pepsin, which is the initial protein breakdown, and then the rest happens throughout the small intestine. The small intestine is where we know it's where we're supposed to have absorption of minerals and vitamins and stuff like that. But like you know now, sometimes there's issues within how they're absorbing things, how the small intestines are absorbing things. And then, but in this area, if it's not absorbing correctly or it's not absorbing fast enough as things are going through digestion, we can have fermentation happen. Everyone's familiar with fermentation, especially if you drink alcohol. That's what people usually enjoy, is fermented fruit in the form of alcohol. Interesting, right? We really don't want fermentation inside of our body, right? That's saying things are rotting. Things are rotting and dying off inside of our body. So fermentation, and then you know what the double doozer is? If you're mixing starches with the fruit, not with the fruit, is it starches with protein? Starches with protein, which think about the good old meat and potatoes, right? Starches with the protein, you're getting fermentation and you're getting what else is the other process that's breaking down? Putrefaction. That word just sounds disgusting whenever I say it, doesn't it? So you're getting fermentation and putrefaction, going for the good old meat and the potatoes right there, right? But I'm getting filled up, I'm building strong, healthy bones, and I'm building big, strong muscles and everything else. Yeah, no, you're actually creating havoc on the inside of the digestive system right there, and then now things are building up and they're getting stuck inside of your lumen, meaning inside your intestine. You have no idea how much crap you have built up inside of your body. One would be amazed. I'm going to update you all on day, what am I? You're 43, so I'm day 33 on a solid food vacation of not eating any solid foods and only drinking juices, mainly from fruits, a little bit of vegetables here and there, and solid things are still coming out. So the whole conversation about, oh yeah, that must be what I ate yesterday. Well, I haven't eaten anything solid yesterday, the day before, or the past month plus. And I'm a healthy individual, okay? Imagine the rest of the population. How much stuff do you think you have backed up inside of you? Interesting to think about, right? So proteins, we know that they're going to break down and turn into amino acids. In the fitness world, you're all about getting your BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, and I can talk about it because I was in the bodybuilding world and been there, done that. I know all about it. But you want your branched chain amino acids so you can build up your, build up the muscles and get strong, and they don't add too many calories, etc., etc. But, so those amino acids, which are there for building and repairing. But again, just when we think of the word protein, and we're going to have to start to introduce you to the fact, don't get locked in thinking protein only comes from animal products. Because what we ultimately use is not the protein, we use the amino acids, which is what proteins break down into, is we want to use the amino acids. But what's the quality of the amino acids that are being broken down that you're actually going to be using for building and repairing inside of your body? And then we also have carbohydrates, which we know those break down into simple sugars, and that's all about fuel. That's energy and fuel. We need that for us to be able to process, for all the processes that are happening inside of our body, and for us what we physically do out here in the world. And then fats break down into fatty acids, and those are also there for building and repair and for emergency needs. But we don't actually need as much of it as what we think. And then how many of us love that marbled meat? It's full of fat, let alone the quality of the fat, let alone the quality of the beef or the chicken or the pork or the whatever you're eating, and who knows what kind of inhumane practices went on just to get that livestock to your plate. So we can move on. So absorption is the second part of the 4 basic principles. Absorption. Once foods are broken down, we must absorb these building materials. So we're breaking them down, but now our body needs to be able to bring them in so that way we can break them down into smaller components, but now we need to actually absorb those smaller components so then we can start to utilize them, which is the next step, right? And then they're carried through the bloodstream. So we break stuff down through all the digestive contents going down into the small intestines. From the small intestines, those are actually like what we are able to use. How do we absorb it? It has to travel through the bloodstream. So the bloodstream is very purposeful. Yes, we have red blood cells in there, and we have plasma, we have all these other things inside of our bloodstream, but we need to be able to transport these minerals, these vitamins, and these nutrients, and absorb that throughout our body, going through that, so that way we can use it for stimulation, for building and repairing. And it happens through like these little finger-like projections inside the small intestines that are like, they're kind of like finger-like things that like to absorb things in. And then there's pores along the way. That's how we get things inside of there. But all of this should be simple. Like absorbing should be simple, but oftentimes, as I already prepared you for, is it's blocked. And if it's blocked, most people are impacted with a thick rubber substance known as mucoid plaque. Okay? Another word that kind of sounds gross, doesn't it? Mucoid, as you think about it, mucoid, mucus. So think thick mucus that is hardening starts to form inside of your intestines. And not only does it start to form inside of your intestines, that actually starts to form inside the kidneys. Okay? Kidney stones. Anybody hear about that? Anybody that ever have kidney stones? How about liver stones, gallstones, right? Those are different types of like mucoid thickening that's happening and surrounding things, creating these very thick things that will block the functioning of your kidneys, of your liver, of your gallbladder, right? See how it's getting connected to what we're putting inside of our body and whether or not it's being digested properly and being absorbed properly, let alone those aren't getting eliminated because those are stuck inside of you. They're building up, right?
I had kidney stones after stopping eating meat.
Did you?
Yep, they came out of my body.
How cool is that? So what she just shared, if you didn't hear, is that she had kidney stones after she stopped eating meat. And you're like, well, I stopped eating meat, why am I getting kidney stones? No, because her body was able to actually eliminate them, get them out of her body. So it's been building up, and they weren't moving at all. And then once you stopped eating meat, your body was like, oh, we're gonna lower down, we're not adding more fuel to the fire through the acidity, adding more animal meat into my body. And then now your body had the opportunity that like, I'm going to pass these kidney stones now.
Yep.
Isn't that incredible? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think about that with gallstones. I mean, how many people just like get their gallbladder removed because, you know, for some reason the gallbladder has no purpose in our body. You know, God didn't put everything inside of our body for a reason, right? Obviously I'm being tongue in cheek right now, but you know, a lot of people have different things removed, even with kidneys. Like your left and your right side of your kidneys, like you don't just have an extra kidney. You know, the right kidney is what helps filtrate everything on the right side. The left kidney helps filtrate everything on the left side. Amazing, right? And it's like, oh, but I have an extra kidney, so I could donate one of those. No big deal, right? Same thing with anything else where there's two sides. Thyroid has two sides of it as well. Thyroid on the right side is dealing with what's happening on the right side. Thyroid on the left side, and same thing, like it just goes on. So like there is no doubles and replications happening in our body for no good reason. Always for good reason. And then with the mucoid plaquing, as I was talking about that, a lot of that comes from gluten. Gluten, mucus, and like dairy products. They're all very acidic. And gluten, meaning wheat, barley, or rye, they're like glue. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like in the word gluten is like glue. It feels really good going inside the body because glue feels good. It's like thick and movable and stuff. Yeah, but glue like traps onto stuff and it holds on to stuff and it can collect things, right? And so that's part of what's making this mucoid plaquing that's also forming inside of our bodies in various areas, not just in the small intestines, but now you realize it can happen in the kidneys and the liver and the gallbladder, right? And some of this too, you're going to find a little bit, some of this also can contribute to people having like to diabetes and having pancreas issues and stuff like that. So if we can move on to the next one, the utilization. So we've gone through digestion, absorption, and now we're going into the utilization. Each of these important processes that can have hiccups at any point in time, and it gives us information based off of the symptoms that you're having. Those symptoms are always your body's way of letting you know something's going wrong or something's going on. So even when it comes to like yeast and fungus and these kinds of things that show up on our bodies and warts and stuff like that, of course they don't look good, we want to get rid of them, but those are always like the canaries in the coal mine, letting you know that something else is happening, being blocked or not happening correctly like it's supposed to inside of the body. So I just kind of want to get you thinking about these different things that show up, even like breakouts and stuff that happen on the skin and stuff like that. Your skin is another organ of elimination and allowing to releasing of toxins and stuff like that. So whenever you're getting these skin outbreaks, like sure you don't want it, but don't just go for the topicals and just stick a topical on top of it and think that's going to fix everything. Why are you getting that skin outbreak? Why are you having yeast infections, urinary tract infections? Why are you getting like all these different funguses and warts? Like why? So that's something I just kind of want you to always think about, because there's always a reason behind it, right?
Like what?
Huh?
Why?
Digestive issues. Now you're realizing, is it digestive issue? Is it absorption issues? Is it utilization issues? Is your lymphatic system? Is there a problem where your lymph? Because when people think about lymph, they think lymph nodes. Oh, I've got swollen lymph nodes. Okay, so your lymph nodes is your septic system inside of your body. Okay, so if you don't know that, we know that we have our digestive system, which is one of our elimination systems, right? We also have all these steps going before the elimination, right? But the lymphatic system, which you have lymph nodes everywhere, I have them along here. You have like even have like a lymph system within your brain, because your brain needs a septic system too. Our brain gets things inside there. Plaquing happens in the brain too. It needs something to eliminate and mobilize and move things out that aren't supposed to be in there too. So our lymph, we have lymph nodes all over here, underneath your armpits, right in here, down into your arms, then down along the sides, like from the kidneys all the way down into the groin region and everything. Like I'm sure a lot of you have probably felt an inflamed lymph node somewhere on your body, whether it was around breast tissue, a lot of times in the groin region when it comes for males and stuff like that. Definitely swollen glands and lymph nodes all around underneath here. So the lymph nodes are your septic system. So whenever they get all swollen, and of course, you know, you go to the doctor, we're like, oh, is it hard? Is it movable? Is it this? Is it that? Regardless of all this and that, because they want to try to diagnose it, calling it a tumor or cancer, so they go in and cut it out of you. But it's like, hold up, why is this happening? Your septic system is backed up, okay? This is equivalent to the fact that if you're in your house and your septic system was backed up in your house, you're probably going to get your butt out of there as quick as possible, right? Because it's going to stink. It's going to stink. If you're going to be like, I don't want to be in the fumes of that. That's happening inside of your body, people. Right? You wonder why you got BO. You wonder why you got to like put all these things inside your body to try to cover it up. All this deodorant, let alone make sure it doesn't have aluminum. You're doing antiperspirant. Now, we need to sweat. That's part of helping your lymphatics flow too. So your lymphatics are your septic system, right? Septic system, what they do is they collect junk, they collect garbage, they collect byproducts from every cell inside your body, also eliminates, so we'll rehash on that too. Every cell, which we're composed of 50 trillion cells inside our body, every cell has to release, it has to eliminate. Where does their elimination products go? In the lymph. Crazy. So, cells are working all the time, right? So that means your lymph is probably working all the time. Same thing if your lymph is working really hard because like you're eating a lot of things and your body's having to work really hard to detoxify and cleanse and purify that, then just like at your house, like if you miss a day or like if you miss a week of like the garbage pickup, some people freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, my garbage can is overfilling. That's what ends up happening with the lymph. What's supposed to happen is from the lymph, it's supposed to go into the kidney. Like it's supposed to break down because a lot of stuff that goes into the lymph is acidic because we put a lot of acidic stuff inside of our body. It goes into the lymph and then it has little bacteria inside of the lymph that bacteria chomp, 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 eats that stuff. Thank you, good bacteria. This is the good bacteria. The good bacteria inside of the lymph is chomping on all the bad stuff, breaking it down, and whenever it poops it out, basically, it becomes alkaline. Oh, beautiful how that process happens, right? So it starts off acidic, bacteria eats it, breaks it down, digests it, eliminates it, and it becomes alkaline, and from there, it goes into the kidneys. But what if you have kidney problems? What do you have kidney stones? So now think of how all this accumulation is building up, right? See how like at any point in time there could be like backup or stop or blocking or stuff like that, right? So the kidneys, you have a right and a left one, they're both necessary. Right goes to the right side, left goes to the left side, right? They need to filter these things out. So they need to help filter that. And if the lymph can get backed up, because maybe you don't have any of the like good bacteria inside there because you just got chock full of antibiotics. How many people have been on a series of antibiotics? I've been there, done that. Growing up, I mean, all the time, I had swollen lymph nodes here and swollen glands all the time.
So if you kill off the antibiotic, like if the antibiotics kill off those things in the lymph nodes, what happens and why has that become a problem now for the lymph?
So now you're taking antibiotics, which kills all the bacteria, right? Including the good bacteria. And now we realize those are good bacteria that we have inside of our lymph right there that are chomping and all the toxic waste and stuff. Now, guess what happens? Who's in there to break it down to turn that acidic mess into an alkaline? There's no one there to do that. And so now what happens? Inflammation. And inflammation can turn into autoimmune conditions inside the body. And now you can think of the whole slew of autoimmune conditions that happens throughout the digestion, throughout the digestive tract, right? Okay? And so now you've got this acidity in there, and that turns into a whole other level of like, we've got to get the lymph flowing, we've got to replenish it and try to get more of the bacteria, the good bacteria back inside there again. But in the meantime, the lymph it's not about to put it into the kidneys are already backing up, and we've got to make sure that the lymph is flowing. So how do we take care of that? We eat high vibrational alkaline food like fruits. Amazing. Those come from Mother Earth. We need to eat fruits. We need to eat fruits to get our lymphatics going, right? Because that's what's going to help move things around, turn things more alkaline. And the body can start to prepare itself because the body's really smart. It's going to put everything in there it needs to do, but you need to put it in an environment so it can do so. Dr. Lee, if you want to add more to that, absolutely.
Yeah. So, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So what happens is that that acidity inside of the body, whenever you're eating these foods, so you eat things like proteins, you eat meats, you eat breads, these all become very acidic in the body. They may not taste acidic in the mouth when you put them in, but ultimately they get broken down, and when they make it inside of the bloodstream, then it starts to go into that lymphatic system, and it begins to turn all the tissues acidic. And acid, last time you guys checked, is acid something you want to get on your skin? No. Would you want to take acid, like maybe battery acid, and pour that on your tongue? No. Would you want to swallow it? No. Would you want to have it anywhere inside of your body? No, because if you put it on your hand, it goes and starts eating right through the tissue, right? That's what it does. Well, when our bodies have all of the cells are machines, and the machines they kick off the exhaust, or they poop, if you want to think about it that way. So they're doing their thing because the blood just fed them the nutrition and says, oh, here you go. Your cells go, oh, thank you. The kitchen just delivered my dinner. They eat, they do everything that they need to do, and then they kick out the exhaust, and that exhaust is coming out acidic. But our body handles that, like Dr. Natalie was saying, because it comes out at a 3 pH, which is our stomach acid is a 2 pH. Battery acid is about a 1 to 2 pH. Very, 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 very acidic. But our body goes into the lymph, and the lymph is made to be protected by fat. So fatty acids, cholesterol. Have you guys heard of cholesterol? Everyone's heard of cholesterol. That's one of the things the doctors check. They say, oh, is my cholesterol high, is it low? They're worried about blood cholesterol, but cholesterol literally hangs out in the lymphatic system to take this acid that came through and protect it, because fats and lipids are there to protect acids, because if that acid got pushed against your blood vessel, what do you think it's going to do? Chomp, 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 chomp. It's going to burn right through it. If it gets next to any other tissues, what happens? It starts to burn it. So the body is very smart, and it says, hey, we're going to use cholesterol in the lymphatic fluid, and we're going to push that into the lymph node so that we can now turn that 3 pH, which is very acidic, into something that's more neutral, that's not going to burn the inside of our body. Well, what happens when that starts to go wrong is now your body is literally sitting, it has acid just sitting in the lymphatic system, where is the lymphatic system? I don't know, maybe different spots here. Interesting, our body is made of 2 fluids. We have, anyone want to guess one of the fluids?
Water.
Well, there's water, which is actually a component of many of them, but we have blood, right? So that's one fluid system. And we have lymph. And water is in both of those, which is crucial, right? But 20% of the body is blood. 80% of the body is actually lymph. So every single one of our cells is there, and they're not just right next to each other. There's actually a little bit of space between one cell and another. If we have 50 trillion cells, there's a lot of little cells with a lot of spaces in between them, and that's so that they can have a blood vessel that drops off their food. Like, the Uber just arrived, and they go, oh, thank you very much, here's the food. But they also have that space there in between them so that they can drop off the trash, right, the exhaust. And that's where the lymphatic fluid is. So surrounding every single one of our cells, we have this fluid that's called the lymphatic fluid. So between those two fluids, that is everything in the body that you actually have to now, that you're working with. And if the fluid inside of the body around the cells becomes acidic, guess what? That acidity is right next to a cell in your body. So your body has to clear that acid out of there. What is the process of cancer? I mean, you guys have heard of tumors? Right?
Yes.
Maybe you've seen tumors.
No.
Well, tumors are a cell that has been pooping out a lot of acid, and now what it does is it starts to create a protective buffer around it. Because otherwise that acid is going to start to burn and eat through things. If people have seen aggressive tumors, aggressive cancers, it's literally acid that is chomping and eating through the tissue in the body, whether that's your bone, whether that's in your blood, whether that's through your skin, whether that's in your breast tissue. That's what's happening. So the body says, well, we can't have this acid run amok. And so what it does is it's going to kill all the cells. So what the body does is it forms a protective membrane of lipid or fat around it, because fat won't get burned. So whenever this process, before you get to that stage, you start off with inflammation, like Dr. Natalie was saying, and that inflammation is the beginning trigger for almost every chronic disease that we know in today. Like it all deals with inflammation. Right, you guys have often heard of, I know a lot of people have heard about that, like, ooh, inflammation, that's not a good thing, we don't want that. Well, it serves its purpose, it serves its role. We don't want it if it means that, oh wow, the real reason is we don't want the acid buildup that's inside of our body to be there. That's the real problem, not the inflammation. The inflammation is just the body going like, whoo, it's hot in here, like it's getting a little warm. And we want to blame that response, because now the inflammatory response is there to try to protect the body, like creating a tumor perhaps. That's actually a protective response that the body is doing so that you don't die immediately from this acid buildup that's breaking down your body. So this is so important, and we want to make sure that these fluids inside of our body can actually escape. They can leave. They need to be cleaned out. The lymphatic fluid has to be cleaned out, and it has to escape the body. So it's in my opinion, there's 3 ways that the body breaks down. There's 3 energy systems in the body. If you guys are here, you understand the power of the nervous system and the importance of the nervous system, right? That's the master control system of everything. If that nerve can't flow and the signal can't go, guess what? You're going to have problems. And we see that every day when we're getting people adjusted. We take the pressure off of the nerves, we let that energy flow, and the body starts to heal at a dramatic level. The other one is blood flow. What happens if you cut off blood flow to an area?
You die.
You can. If it goes
You die, you do not have no blood.
If you don't have blood, or if part of your brain doesn't get blood, that's what you call a stroke.
Ischemia.
Right? If part of your blood doesn't get to your heart, they call it a heart attack. So you absolutely can die if you start to lose blood supply to a region, because you just starved that area of nutrition, right? That's the kitchen. The blood brings all the food to all the cells, and if you cut the nutrition to a part of the body that is crucial, like the heart or the brain, yeah, you're going to have serious problems that occur when that happens. The third one is the one that nobody ever talks about or no one ever thinks about, and that's the lymphatic fluid. If blood is 20% of the fluids in the body, lymphatic fluid is 80% of the fluids in the body, but we kind of ignore it entirely in the mainstream medical world. We dismiss it. Even alternative care dismisses it. They don't think about it being important. Hugely important, because that's how we get our body that's how we get rid of the acid in our body. We've heard of before I understood any of this, I heard of, oh, there's an acid diet or like an alkaline diet. You want to eat more alkaline foods, drink alkaline water, and all of that. Never really made sense to me as to why. I'm like, oh, well, it sounds better than eating acid. Acid doesn't sound good, but I never was able to conceptualize it, even with my background and my training. And I guarantee you, medical doctors aren't processing it. They go, I don't know, what's the big deal here? It's a huge deal, because you need that. Your body operates in an alkaline environment, but it has to deal with acid. Because no matter what we do, we can put in all the alkaline food in our body, but if we can't deal with the acid that our cells are making, because things are backed up and congested, then we're going to back up with acid. So we have to be able to eliminate that. We have to get that out. The cool thing is, with all of that knowledge that you guys are freshly, getting in your noggin right now, which is a lot to digest, I get it, but the answer is super simple. The answer is, if you eat fruits, guess what fruits do? They actually mobilize your body to get rid of the lymphatic fluid. It thins out the lymph. It starts to help to neutralize those acids, and it helps you to get that fluid out of your body. So that acid that's starting to build up, right? And it doesn't just go immediately starting to cause things like cancer. It causes aches and pains, arthritis. You guys know what arthritis is. It causes digestive problems. Because the lymph is in every single organ of the body, right? So if it's in your intestines also are made of what? Cells. And those cells have to have nutrition. They just happen to be a stomach cell in this case. And if they don't have good nutrition, then they can't eliminate that, then they're going to back up, and that's going to be a breakdown. So every organ system in our digestive tract is actually requiring itself to get rid of the acids. And then fruits, by eating fruits, something so simple, something that was given to us by nature, by design, God-given, that we're here and we're able to just be like, oh, wow, look at that. We don't harm anything by picking a fruit off of a tree. The tree even says, please take me. Please eat me. In doing so, you're actually going to eat my seeds, and then you're going to spread so so we can make more plants as well. Right? We can make more trees. Vegetables is the same way. Raw fruits, raw vegetables actually cleanse the body. And it's so deceptively simple, because we've talked about so many things that are like, oh my gosh, my head is kind of swirling. Digestion, absorption, blah, 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 blah. But and then acids and all that. It's like, oh man, that sounds bad. The solution is so simple. It's not eating meats. We'll get into why that is. I came from being a carnivore, totally. I was a carnivore diet where I didn't eat any plants. I was afraid of fruits. I was afraid of vegetables. To being like, okay, let's give this a shot. This makes sense. Let's try it. And wow, the differences. The difference is when you start eating raw. How many animals have you ever seen cooking a meal? Never? Not one of you guys? Oh man, some of y'all are older than I am, and you've never seen an animal cook a meal? Okay, then it's probably because it doesn't have it.
Yep. Right?
Because animals don't cook their food. Not a single one of them does. But you know what we do? Sometimes our pets, we like to give them cooked foods. How many animals in nature wind up with all the disease symptoms, disease processes that our animals have?
That we have.
They're the same diseases that human beings get. We also have our pets get that. You know what we do with our pet food? We cook it. We cook it and then we process it. And then we give it to them and we wonder, wow, it's weird. Domesticated animals that we're here to take care of, they get the same problems that we do. But the ones in the wild don't. That's a head scratcher. I guess that it's not even worth trying to solve, because if you try to feed your animal raw food, the vets will chase you down and try to strangle you and say that you're doing something bad, because you better be giving them puppy chow or whatever it is, whatever food that they want, the Purina dog food that's coming from a bag, because it just makes no sense when you stop and think about it. It's like, so you're going to give your animal highly processed food. And if you do that, they wind up with all the diseases that humans get. You give them raw food, eat what they would eat in the wild, they don't get those problems. Fun experiment. Try it. Your animals will start to heal. Do the same thing with yourself. interesting. You start to heal. You start eating the foods that your body was designed to eat, which are not uncooked fruits and uncooked vegetables.
Amazing.
Huge.
I want to add on there too, because every cell, like your bones are made up of cells. So like to relate it to here in chiropractic, when he was talking about arthritis earlier, bone spurs, that's another thing. I just want you to think about this too, because we're chiropractors, we have to talk about this. Like I can't leave that out. Because when he was talking about the lipids, or meaning the fatty acids, the fats surround things to like encapsulate the acidity that's going on to protect it, right? So we're like, okay, thankful for the fats being there so that way you can protect it. But that also happens within the cells of your bones. So you've heard of bone spurs, lipping and spurring, and how many of you, we've looked at your x-rays and you've got these extra growths that are happening, these extra calcifications, or things are trying, the bones are trying to connect and fuse together with one another. That's because your body is naturally responding to try to help you from the fact that there is acidity inside of your body, and your body is like, I'm trying to encapsulate this through the inflammatory process, which is a normal body process, but it's a problem with the inflammation. The fire never goes out. You've got to put the fire out, people. So now you can see how it relates to what we see in the skeleton on a day-to-day basis in here all the time, and how you could start, and that's why whenever like many other medical doctor or osteopath out there, they're like, oh, once you get arthritis, like you just gotta be on like anti-inflammatory, what do you get on? Anti-inflammatories, because they know it's coming from the inflammatory process, but they're not fixing what's causing the inflammatory process, right? Amazing how that works. So you're just gonna be on anti-inflammatories for the rest of your life. Go ahead and keep eating what you're eating, doing what you're doing and everything, and it's just gonna keep going and continuing on until like you get super stiff and now things are fused together and you're like totally degenerated, got disc issues and everything else. You see how it goes? But if we start shifting to more alkaline, that's why in this office, even just through the chiropractic adjustment alone, by waking up the nervous system, one of the main processes in the body, your body can start working harder and better for you, so that way you can start shifting to be a little less acidic and a little more alkaline, and then we see bone spurs stop the process of what they're going to go down. They're just going to continue if you didn't change anything. We see that stop when you start to see arthritis start to reverse a little bit. Of course, depending on how old the person is, how soon we can go about it, and if you're also doing things in the home life, like foods and stuff you're consuming, you're set up for like, well, we can reverse this. It's really exciting. So, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, and for those who like to go back in history, and for those people who find the teachings of Jesus to be something to pay attention to, which I think we all should, there's actually something that didn't make it into the Bible, but Jesus was an Essene, which is it was like a type of sect at the time, and he actually spoke about diet. Interesting that it didn't make it into the Bible in my take, but I think that was perhaps man's tinkering, where man decided to tinker around and decide maybe not to share some wisdom that I think would have benefited the disciples at the time. But there was the Essene gospel of peace. Jesus was giving his disciples on teaching them how to heal themselves and how to go about and heal other people. He said, if you consume life, you will help your body to live. If you consume death, you will cause your body to die. He was talking about if you eat from living foods, life begets life, death begets death. Think about that one. What is meat? What is it that we're eating? You have to kill an animal in order to eat it. So that's death. That immediately becomes decaying. The process is instantaneous. And it's ubiquitous across our culture. Almost everybody eats meat. Almost all societies eat meat. And then we go to cook it. And we have to cook it in order for our body to digest it, because we're not designed to eat it. So I think it's super important that when you go back in history and you see some of the different prophets, they all spoke about it. All some level came back to grounding ourselves and taking care of the physical body. What I find in chiropractic to be so amazing is that we're all physical beings, or we're all spiritual beings having a physical experience, right? And that's a huge concept that people don't understand. That's the way the body that is what life is about here. We're a spiritual being in a physical body. So we have to take care of our physical body, because if we don't, then it's going to be very, very difficult to remember that we're a spiritual being. And you get disconnected from it. I see it all the time. People that the minute they start to get sick and they start to get ill, that like the light starts to dim in their like they suddenly disconnect from all the things that maybe they knew when they were younger. The vibrancy, you just start to see it. It just starts to it's like a dimmer switch. It just starts to go down. The more pain and suffering that you have inside of your physical body, you're not having an elevated experience of consciousness on this in the physical form. So what gets me so excited with the adjustments is when we adjust people, we see that light start to come back on. That is thrilling, more so than how they're feeling or anything, because we can actually see that light start to flicker back on inside of their body, because now their body is starting to get more connected again, and they're actually getting more in tune with their higher self and their spiritual essence that is inside of that physical body. So the more that we can make sure that our physical bodies are able to carry us through this world, and they're healthy and they're functioning at their highest level, then we're able now to bring the consciousness of our spirits into this physical form and be able to transform the world in a way that we were really intended to come here all along. But we step into this physical space and we start eating the wrong foods, we start getting stressed out, we start making all these mistakes that we don't even realize are mistakes, and now we become more and more and more disconnected. And it's been really neat for to personally be experiencing this. As I've gone through and been basically eating meat, and I've always been very conscious of my diet. I cut out gluten and dairy a long time ago, about 11 years ago, I'd say, around 11, maybe almost 12 years ago. And I noticed huge improvements in my diet. I had cut out eating meat for about 9 months, and to test it out about a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But I was eating all cooked foods, very greasy foods and stuff, and so even though I had been vegan at the time, it was a very unhealthy way to go, and I was like, I don't really feel like this is helping me at all. I don't like this, my body's not happy with it, but I wasn't eating raw fruits, raw vegetables, and getting my body to taste and feel what that felt like. And now I can say that being 43 days into doing nothing but fruits and fruit juices in this case, and the supplements that some of you guys right now are jumping on with the Purium products, are now starting to give you that life force energy. It's starting to come back inside of you through the high vibrational foods. And what I've been experiencing is that higher level of connectedness, the appreciation of the beauty of the planet, being able to appreciate just the present moment so much more, and it just really keeps to be experiencing it as a gift. And it's a gift that we're all meant to be able to feel at all times, but if you've been disconnected from it, sometimes I tell people that you don't appreciate health until you've lost it. So health can be the biggest gift that you ever, or disease can be the biggest gift in your life that you ever experience. Because if you always walked around healthy, well, whatever, no big deal. It's like the kid who got the car, didn't have to work for it, and it's like, yeah, whatever, it's just a car. You're spoiled, you gotta get everything that they wanted. People don't tend to appreciate it. You have to work for something, you didn't have it, you saw other people who had it, and you're like, man, if only I wish my parents would have got me a car, that would have been awesome. But I had to work for it, and I worked at Taco Bell, and I did all these jobs, and then I got this car that is maybe not even as good as some of these other kids' cars, but I earned it, so I appreciate it, and I don't know how they don't appreciate it. Like, man, if only I had that, I would totally appreciate it. But if that person isn't in that situation, like, the kid who was given the car, they're like, well, I don't know any different, right? So if we lose our health, I tell people that that's the biggest gift sometimes that you can get. Now, in the moment, you don't feel like, oh, this is terrible, this is not a gift, this is awful, I want to get out of that. But as you start to regain your health, you realize how important that is and the beauty that is. And so what I want people to be able to do is not only regain their health, but recognize that there's a whole another field of that they can get into. If you go from being unhealthy, you get back to, okay, I'm not hurting anymore, that's one level of existence. What's really neat right now is I've recaptured my health a long time ago, and now what's happening is we're going to a whole different level. And I'm experiencing this whole different level of reality that is super exciting and just makes me want to like grab everyone and be like, come on, we're going on this thing together. Like, it's so simple. Start eating the fruits, eating raw fruits, raw vegetables. Like, let's get this demon out of us, this junk that's inside of us, and we gotta get that out.
Speaking of getting it out, let's talk about elimination.
Let's get into it. So every food has a transit time in the body, right? So if you eat, let's say you eat a hamburger. You eat a hamburger, there's a certain amount of time that it should be in the digestive tract and be out of you. Whenever you feed a dog, usually within, so if you're doing potty training for a new puppy, you feed them, what do you got to do real quickly? Take them outside because they're about to go potty, right? So they eat, time to go. That is what a healthy elimination cycle is. You eat food, you should, for every meal that you eat, you should have a bowel movement. You should go to the bathroom. How many of us are eating only one meal a day? How many of us are eating 2 meals a day? 3 meals a day. That seems pretty normal, right? 3 meals a day. Now, you don't have to raise your hands at this time, but how many of you are having that many bowel movements every single day? You eat 3 times, but you maybe go once. You eat 3 times every single day, but maybe you go once every other day. You eat 3 times a day, maybe you go once every 3 days. I've had people come in and they say they go about once a week. But they don't skip a meal.
Yeah.
Where is that going? It's backing up. John Wayne, you guys know who John Wayne is? The old Western movie star? Yeah, he was, when he passed away, the autopsy report came back. You know how much fecal matter he had impacted in his digestive tract?
No.
50 pounds.
That's probably why I died soon. That's why I died.
Interestingly, yeah, this is all related. It will rob you of your health. You know what the average man, how much junk that they have inside of their digestive tract, just sitting there, undigested or caked on the walls? About 35 pounds. The average woman has about 25 pounds of undigested food caked inside of our bodies. Because we're not going as often as we're eating. So what does it got to do? It's got to get stuck. Whenever you eat bread, white bread, you guys know white bread, right? You can take white bread, ball it up, right, and like turn it into a little pocket.
Oh, I used to love doing that growing up. Like I did that in the school lunches. They give you those lunch rolls with like whatever horrible other food they put on your tray too. I used to take those lunch rolls, take that dinner roll, and you crumble it up, put it in a ball. It was like the best thing. Well, not so much in the body.
Interesting, Dr. Natalie was talking about it being like a glue. So bread is basically like a glue because it has gluten. It's a very sticky molecule. If you take white flour, you guys ever do paper mache? Right? There's several ways you can do paper mache. Well, one of them is you take white flour, mix it up with water, stick it on some newspaper, and like you could literally turn that into a ball that you can knock out drywall with. It gets really, really hard. White flour and water. You eat that white flour, num num num, drink a glass of water, what just happened?
It's hard.
It gets hard.
It starts to get plaques inside of our body. Yet we eat this and we think that it's healthy. Oh no, we need to make sure we get whole grain breads. This is really important. Is it really? I don't know. No, it's definitely not. So the foods that we eat, we want to make sure that they get eliminated quickly. If we eat a fruits get out of our bodies within like 12 hours. 12 hours, it's all the way through.
Let's talk about some of the symptoms that happen with elimination. Like, so everything that goes in, we want to have come out, but what's some of the good things that are happening with elimination, but that might not seem like they're so good? Like flu-like symptoms, right?
You want to come up here?
Colds, yeah.
Where we're going with this?
Yeah. So what I want to talk about too is that we're talking about eliminating everything that goes in must come out. But I want to include the fact too that throughout the elimination process, your skin is eliminating things, right? It's eliminating things as well. Other areas of your body are eliminating things. And so sometimes throughout the elimination process, like the body is mucked up, backed up, right? And so the body has to purge. Like, they're like, oh, I had some MSG in my food. That's why they were vomiting, right? So that is a type of elimination. Vomiting is a type of elimination. Diarrhea is a type of elimination. What does that sound like? Cold and flu-like symptoms, right? Sweating profusely is a type of elimination. Not sweating, you're not eliminating that. That's a problem too, right? So like whenever you're coughing, sneezing, those are types of elimination. You're trying to cough things out. Like, have you guys ever coughed out mucus balls before? I have, I'll admit it. Yeah, I totally have. I had a whole history of having recurring sore throats as a kid growing up and stuff like that, way before changing my diet and all these other things in my life. So yeah, coughing out things, right? Something gets caught in there. Sneezing out things if something is caught up in your nasal. How many people have had boogers in their nose, okay? Like, those are encapsulations happening from like foreign toxins or like stuff being inside the body, and thank you nose hairs and everything else doing their thing, and sometimes you gotta sneeze to get it out. So I want to let you know that elimination happens in ways that we think is a problem, but it's actually not. It's your body purging things out as well. So parasites, who wants to talk about parasites? You want to talk about parasites? You want to talk about parasites? Parasites, oh my gosh. Okay, so the definition of a parasite from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, or the Merriam dictionary, is an organism that feeds off of another. Look at that. Like, technically speaking, I don't want to think about my soul baby like this, but technically some people could say that the baby growing inside of you is a parasite, because it is feeding off of me right now. But this is a beautiful soul parasite. And there are good parasites and there are bad parasites, okay? And that's something else I want you to remember. Because bacteria is actually considered a parasite, because bacteria feeds off of things, right? Fungus feeds off of things, so those are parasites as well. Viruses, whatever they are, feed off of things, right? So that's a type of parasite. Other parasites that people are really familiar with are all forms of worms and stuff like that. So how about thinking about like parasites as this, as an organism that feeds upon the toxicity and the weakness of an organism. So that's something I want you to like really, I'm going to repeat that. An organism that feeds upon the toxicity and weakness of others. Parasites don't feed off of healthy tissue. Bacteria doesn't feed off of healthy tissue. Like fungus doesn't feed off of healthy tissue. Any kind of parasite feeds off of unhealthy or weakened tissue. So think about that with all these different types of parasites that we have inside of our body. Why is it able to survive and thrive? Because there's weakened areas or toxicity in there that is fuel for them, but not fuel for us, right? So remember that mucoid plaque that I was talking about? I was like, oh, it just sounds yucky and nasty, the whole, like what fills up inside of the body, and like, okay, at some point that mucoid plaque needs to come out of the body, okay? That mucoid plaquing is a harvest area for parasites to build. Imagine that. Because it's toxicity that is formed, our body's trying to encapsulate it, makes it harden, and it gets stuck in our intestines and other parts of the body. Parasites thrive in areas of the mucoid plaquing. Okay? So, I want you to think about that, because, and they'll consume any of the remaining nutrients left in the GI tract, especially with meat consumption. And so that will perpetuate the formation and growth of all types of worms, of the parasites that, yeah, we're going to have just a couple pictures if you want to see them. We'll probably eventually go through them.
Right.
But I want you to note, though, that we do require certain intestinal parasites for beneficial breakdown of stuff. Like, we actually need good gut bugs to break down and absorb minerals and nutrients that we need, and the B vitamins are an example of that. Just like you know now, we also need good bacteria to help break down the stuff inside of our lymph to help with our septic system too, right? So what we'll give you the next, it won't be the picture for the next one. You can go to the next one. Oh, I did put a warning slide in there. Okay, so apparently, yeah, so there's some worms, okay, that came out of human beings. Tapeworms, yeah. I'll never forget the time when I saw a tapeworm come out of Ginger. So we rescued Ginger from the Humane Society, and a lot of times, you know, God loved them and everything. They're taking care of those dogs and they want to have them find a good home, but they're not usually in the best food. They're getting a lot of food donated to them, and a lot of times it's like puppy chow and all this other stuff, and goodness knows what the heck they were doing whenever they were out in the open and the homes they were in that got them there to begin with. So Ginger was chock full of worms. Okay, I want to talk this about dogs, but the same thing is inside of human beings too, okay? But I'll never forget the visual, like this wormy thing right there. I saw that when she was having an elimination sequence going on there, and I saw this thing come out of her butt, and then it went, whoop, came right back up. And I'm like, oh, that was not spaghetti. She did not eat spaghetti. Okay, that's a parasite, not supposed to be inside of her, but that thing is definitely feeding off of her. And her body was trying to eliminate it, but her little skitsiness or whatever sucked the sucker right back up too. Right? I know it's disgusting, but I mean, like, this happens inside of our bodies as well. From hookworms to pinworms to tapeworms and everything else like that. And I'm just talking about that with dogs, because we're very familiar that they have to go through and eliminate those as well. Usually we chock them full of like really heavy like antibiotics and all these other things to get them out like really quickly. Now I didn't even think about the fact that what can we do? We could also be giving her high quality foods to process that through the body too. What about? So parasites, some can be good, and that's what I was talking about. But parasites are really a secondary cause of disease. Like earlier when I was talking about like whenever you get fungus, like now we know that's a type of parasite because fungus, it feeds off of unhealthy and toxic and weak tissue, right? But fungus, so when we see the fungus, it's like, well, why is the fungus forming? So when we have parasites, like, we don't want them in there, we want them out. But why are they there to begin with? They only got there to begin with because something else was breaking down, there was toxicity, and that they had an environment that they could flourish and feed off of, right?
They're not clearing their lymphatics out.
Yeah, and they're not clearing their lymphatics out. So, contributing factors to consciousness. So like Dr. Lee talked about this, I think it was the first week, he was talking about the story about mice having parasites inside of their body, taking over their brain activity to make a mouse want to go after cat urine. Like, come on. A mouse would be in its own true consciousness, thinking on its own, would not go anywhere near a cat knowing that the cat's going to want to eat it for lunch. But because the parasite can take over your consciousness, that's what happened with the mouse. So that can happen to us as well. So like, in this case, it can contribute to consciousness issues and the vibration of cells, and that's when I said recalling what Dr. Lee talked about, and also mess with our DNA memory and stuff like that of what we think we need. You can also get parasites in the jab because they put stuff inside of there. They put that stuff inside of there because it's a toxin. It's going to weaken the tissue. They put that stuff inside of the jab. So now we're injecting it directly through the bloodstream and right into us. Many diseases have been created or inspired by these jabs. ADD, I mean, how many times we know, like, that's a big thing in the conversation in the jab world like that, like getting autism spectrum, ADD, all these other things along the spectrum, like, and I'm just talking about the parasite part of it, let alone the heavy metals and all these other things, but like, including AIDS and cancer. Because what? Parasites don't feed off of healthy tissue. Like, you put parasites in there in a weakened organism and a toxic organism, those things are going to grow and proliferate, and then as we know now from the process of digestion and everything else, that it can turn into tumors, like cysts, tumors can turn into cancer or all these other conditions depending upon what part of the body is being affected. Those are just things to consider, right? But nature created them. Nature created parasites. Nature created parasites because they were purposeful to clean dead carcasses. Just like Dr. Lee was talking about, since when was the last time you saw an animal cooking its food or something like that? So you don't see that happening. But like the moment that an animal were to be killed, there's a timeline of how quickly you want to get to that animal so that way you can preserve the meat. Because parasites, nature created it, wants it to go in there so it can break down all the tissue as part of all the carcass part of that tissue. So this is a normal, natural process to have these different types of parasites and break down, and they call it proteolytic enzymes, which is a type of parasite, to break down tissues of dead, dying tissue. Okay? So allows nature to change from one form to another, because if we didn't have the parasites, here's the positive, we didn't have the parasites to break down the roadkill that we see, we'd have a lot more roadkill just hanging out and never decomposing. That's how decomposition happens. Even as disgusting as maggots are, That's what starts to, that's what gets dropped off inside of these carcasses. And maggots, what's their purpose? Is to eat away the dead tissue so it starts to decompose. And it's really disgusting, but actually kind of thankful for it because, that way it can go back into Mother Earth and decompose and restore again, right?
But if we have that inside of our body, how sick are we?
Yeah.
How sick are we that something that feeds off of death and decay and things that are broken down are now feeding off of us from the inside?
Yeah. So I just want to give some perspective with that. And then just a little bit more. Back in the day, adults used to deworm their children every spring. That was a thing. We would deworm our children. Why? Not because we were like, oh, you're chock full of parasites, kid, you need to get dewormed. No, just because it's known that in nature, being part of it and stuff, there's naturally some parasites and stuff that are going to happen. That every spring, it's a good time to cleanse your body. Right? Day-to-day activities bring parasites into the body. They become feeders on our own toxins and weak cells. They often grow in the intestinal tract. I talked about that. And then I kind of talked about flukes, which is a jellyfish-looking kind of one. And those ones happen in the liver and the pancreas. That's what I was trying to make that connection. When in the pancreas can cause digestive problems and diabetes. But it's genetic. No. We can eliminate that. We can eliminate that stuff. Who knows? Your diabetes can be directly associated with all these other breakdowns as part of the digestion, absorption, utilization, any of those 4 basic processes that we've gone through right there. And then now we also have dead, weakened tissue, things in there growing into our pancreas. And now we can have diabetes. Right? Okay. Move on. So, I'd love for Madalyn to talk about colon cleanse. Talk about in relation to the Purium products of anything that you can add to that, and then we can talk more about why is it important to do a colon cleanse.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Madalyn. Good to see you. So I want to also kind of touch base on some of the things that I've already gone through, is sharing some of the Purium products that I have been ingesting into my body for about the past 3 years, but just over the last year and a half, this is the 6th cleanse that I've gone on with this company, and I personally like to do it with the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter, seasonal changes, and so that's what's worked really well for me. So I want to go back to the 4 points that you all spoke about with the digestion, the digestive process, and the incorporation of fiber. That isn't something that we've talked about or that we plan on doing sections on, but understanding that when we're increasing our fiber intake, which is really easy to get through fruits and vegetables, that's going to be supportive of the elimination process. A lot of issues that can come in the digestive tract actually can also come from just a lack of fiber intake, like diverticulitis and different other kinds of diseases actually can come just from us not eliminating, which can be prevented from ingesting enough fiber. And from my understanding, women should be getting at least 25 grams of fiber a day, and men closer to 30 or 35. And so when we're ingesting that much fiber every day, it's much easier to have at least 3 bowel movements a day when we're ingesting enough fiber. And so if you're not ingesting that much and you start kind of tracking it, I recommend slowly increasing it, because your belly can kind of get a little upset if you just also start eating 25 grams of fiber when you've only been eating 10 every day. So the absorption aspect that they're talking about, we can ingest all these foods that we want, right? That really healthy foods. And that was my story. I was ingesting vegan, gluten-free, organic, high fermented foods for 3 years, and yet my body began to not be able to absorb the nutrients from all this good food that I was eating and spending a lot of money on. And so the Biometic product is the product that detoxifies the glyphosate out of the system. And when they were talking about the villi in the intestines, that's actually where the nutrients come in and they absorb. Well, they get short and stubby and hard, and then our body can't actually absorb the nutrients. And so what the Biometic does is it cleanses and purifies them, and it helps them regrow so that your body can actually absorb the nutrients, and it helps to heal and repair the tissue that's been damaged from the glyphosate, from all the chemicals that we ingest in our food, and not just repair the microvilli, but the tissue around, like the sensitive tissue that our small intestines are made of. And so it helps repair all that so our body can actually absorb the nutrients better. The utilization piece around ingesting raw food, that's something like with the cooked stuff all the time, like a lot of the nutrients are actually getting cooked out of the food. And so that's one of the things that I love about the green juice, with Purium, is that it's dehydrated at a really low temperature. Most food powders are dehydrated between 180 and 220 degrees. And so a lot of the nutrients actually are cooked out of the products. And so the Purium green juice is dehydrated between 60 and 80 degrees. And so it maintains its raw living form. And you'll feel it when you drink it. You can feel it in the body. I mean, I can feel it lighting up. The sunlight, the nutrients that are in it, it just lights up your body. It's really powerful. And so that's one of the things that I love about this product. Not just the fact that it's so clean, but it is like raw juicing when maybe some of us don't have, the fire inside of us to be juicing and doing this like very extreme thing, which I like love and I'm super inspired by the way, and I feel like maybe one day I'll try it. But right now it's an easy process to be utilizing the green juice and not juicing every day. So the last one that they talked about was the elimination, and one of the things that I just wanted to mention with the lymph that I personally incorporate into my day is dry brushing. Have you all heard of dry brushing?
Yeah.
So there's these natural dry brushes that you can get like at a natural food store, and what you do is you start from the outer extremities and you just dry brush your skin, and you do it all directed towards your heart. Okay. So you dry brush and then get in the shower, and it helps to purify your lymphatic system. And you'll feel it after you dry brush. Your whole skin will have a response, and it'll kind of look like you have goosebumps, but you're not cold like that. But your whole skin has a response to it, and it helps to purify the lymphatic system. Another thing that a lot of people do that I know that is incredibly powerful is cold plunging. Or cold showers. If you don't have like the opportunity to like cold plunge for 90 seconds, you can do like a 90-second cold shower, and just like for 90 full seconds just in a cold shower, and it literally causes your whole lymphatic system to detox. So it's incredibly healthy. It gives you a lot of energy. And so there's other ways that we can be supporting our lymphatic system in the detoxification process as well. Also, the anti-inflammatory aspect, the tart cherry juice called Apothecary that's in the cleansing kit you take before you go to bed at night, it is highly anti-inflammatory. It takes down inflammation in the body, and you drink it right before you go to sleep, which then it helps you also get into your REM cycle more quickly and stay there longer because of the naturally occurring melatonin in tart cherries. And so your body's going to be resting most deeply in that state, which then can support in the repairing process as we're detoxing and taking down the inflammation. So one of the things I want to speak to too is like as we cleanse out our system, as we're releasing these parasites, we're releasing this consciousness out of our body that's not ours, when we're cleansing the colon and we're getting rid of, if we can just even think about simplifying into the understanding that like when we're getting rid of crap in our body, it's going to reflect in our outer world. Like that's just what happens because it's all connected. Nothing is separate. And like coming back to the what Dr. Lee was speaking about with the connection of the spiritual body with the physical body, like it's not separate. When we look at holistic wellness, it's mind, body, and spirit. Okay, So when we're working and we're cleansing the physical body, we're going to start having these realizations that he's talking about. He's connected into nature. He's more connected to God. And that was my story. When I stopped eating meat and I started working with plant-based foods, and I started getting chiropractic care actually all at the same time, I created a clear channel of awareness in my body. And I had even psychic abilities start activating inside of me, okay? So that was something that I knew that I had, that I lost for years. And my ability to connect into information that's not known, but that I know, was awakened through my ability to connect with plant-based products in my body, and my body's vibrating with the earth and with other people around me, and being able to sense the subtleties of energy around me. I don't know about you all, but it seems like the best time on planet Earth to be connecting into our intuition, to be connecting into our original GPS system, right? Which is our body. Our body sends us signals of like, I don't know about that, that doesn't feel right to me. You know, and many of us are disconnected from that because we're just on our cell phones, we're eating food that's programmed with consciousness in a lab somewhere. That has parasites that are just running through us and we don't even know it. And so, you know, this is a really powerful journey to take to really support in cleansing not just the physical body, but all of the other bodies. And really like understanding that when we're tending to ourselves and we're tending to our bodies, it's like, it truly is the best thing that we can be doing, not just for us, but those who we're around. When we understand that like our mood is highly impacted by our gut health, that 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, I know that I can't show up for you in relationship in my best if my gut isn't being tended to. If those good parasites and good bacteria aren't working in there, which are being killed off by a lot of the chemicals that we're ingesting in our food and in our water. They're dying off. You know, we hear about global warming and all these different animal species going extinct, but we don't talk about the inside of us, different organisms going extinct in humans that are essential for like my little inner ecosystem here, like operating and functioning, and your little ecosystem functioning, and then we all get to just like function in harmony together, right? Like it's like we are a species that is wired for connection. And so it's like when we're tending to ourselves and we're connecting deeply with our body, our mind, our spirit, and then we're able to show up for each other in that way. The plants are so intelligent. When you look into Native American traditions and other indigenous cultures outside of this country, a lot of them are working with powerful plant medicines that make you see very clearly, that support you in connecting to the earth. You know, before the times when we're like on cell phones and driving around in cars and we're sleeping on the earth every night, and we're sitting with a fire every night. You know, it's ancient wisdom, and the plants are really powerful teachers. And some of the products that are in this juice, chlorella and spirulina, are the most ancient grandmother plant spirits on the planet. It's where all of our life emerged from, the entire biosphere coming from algae, right? So when we return to that within our bodies, when our bodies returns to the vibration of where we all came from, we can attune to one another, we can attune to each other, we can find who our tribe is and who we resonate with, and we can connect really deeply to the earth. And so, that's what I have to say.
That's awesome. No, I love it because it ties everything in. So, gosh, yes. Always wanted to bring it back in because it gets so scientific, because, people want to hear science. They want to hear, when you hear the hardcore facts, how this works and everything. But then when it comes back, it all comes back to the essence of getting our environment, our ecosystem, being full of health and vitality, which when we take care of our world, that reflects in our outer world as well. And so beautifully said, so thank you so much for that, because it just ties it in, and I just love how symbiotic everything is with that. So yeah, gut and overall health, clearly very deeply and utterly connected, right? Have you got that idea yet? You think gut and health is like overall health related? Because it totally is. So yeah, so let's just close it out on that, and just know that like become healthy and vital, and your life will change in every way imaginable. And you can start doing that just by cleansing and clearing, getting connected, putting high vibrational foods inside your body. And yes, you can do it with Purium products, and gosh, how clean and clear that is. So thank you all for coming in. Hope this was very informational for you. We'll be checking back in again next week with some other good information. We're going to start breaking down, talking a little bit more about, I think, proteins next week, breaking it down about like how we can talk about where protein comes from other places than where we think it comes from. So, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How can you live with one kidney?
How can what?
How can you live with one kidney? Because my father had cancer in one kidney and he had to have it removed, and he lived on one kidney. How do you live with that one kidney?
Well, the other kidney obviously was doing good enough that it was able to filter, but was he able to filter completely on the opposite side where his other kidney wasn't anymore? Right? Because people can live with one kidney. Obviously, we see it happen all the time. But at the same time, like, what's the quality of their life with only one kidney filtering now, too? The question you asked.
Yeah.
So, but it is a good question.
And how do people get arthritis? What
there's
causes
a lot.
arthritis? What in your life gives you arthritis?
Some of the stuff we talked about here, that makes some sense. Look at the foods we're eating. Look what it's doing to our body.
What is arthritis? It do something with the bone.
Goes to the bone.
Want me to fill that one?
Yeah.
So there's two major keys for arthritis that we look at. One is that the bones are wiggling too much, right? If they're wiggling too much, then your body says we need to create some stability.
What causes the wiggling?
So if the muscles that are supposed to stabilize, so we talk about the spine. So arthritis is in the spine very, very commonly. I see it every single day. Almost every single person, scarily enough, has it. If they're over 15 years old nowadays, that young. So it's almost a guarantee. I'm shocked when I don't see it now. But what happens is the brain sends signals to the muscles to stabilize the spine so that as you move, your spine doesn't go moving and pinching off the big nerves that are leaving, or your spinal cord, because that can kill you. So it has to be very tightly controlled. If it is moving a little bit too much, the body says, oh man, we're disconnected from the brain, so in order to survive, we better quickly start to make the bones bigger and make them wider, so it makes their stance bigger so that they're not wiggling and doing this. Because am I more stable if I stand like this and someone tries to push me over, or if someone does this and tries to push me over, right? I want a wide stance. Well, the body says the bones are disconnected up from everything else, so that your body says, oh man, the muscles aren't stabilizing me, so as a bone, I'm stuck to do this myself. And the bone starts to grow. The bone cells realize that they need to create some stability, and that's the beautiful innate intelligence that we have inside of our body, and so it starts to get wider. Now, to complicate that, there's another reason why we can start to get arthritis as well. And that other reason is because you have ligaments that are around the bones. And those ligaments, you can't see them on an x-ray. But they're there, and it's like tape that's holding the bones together. Well, there is a lot of calcium inside of that. When our body becomes more acidic, like we talked about, you start having more acid, your body's going to do whatever it takes to neutralize that acid. So what it does is it takes calcium out of the connective tissue, out of the ligaments, and it flips it into the lymphatic system, so these little free calcium molecules are there to buffer out the acidity. But what that does now is that starts to cause a hardening and like a leaching and extra movement in those ligaments, and so now you actually start to form arthritis in different types of joints because you're actually stealing it from the connective tissue.
Is this how you get arthritis from too much calcium?
It's how the calcium gets leached out of the areas that it's supposed to be, and then it gets into other tissues, and then it redeposits itself.
How come some people don't get it?
What's that?
Some people don't get arthritis.
Almost, yeah, because you're not supposed to get arthritis.